Okay, got it. All right, cool, excellent. All right, so we're back with our second professional athlete interview. This one is a very special one for me. I'm here with my man TJ Adams. He's a former professional baseball player for the Philadelphia Phillies. He was selected by the Phillies in the 2019 draft. And it's also very special to me because he was my roommate for 2 or 3 years in school. How
Yeah, at
many?
least
How many?
2 years, but it seems like we were there the whole time because even in the dorms, we were still over at each other's room every night.
Yeah, we're the same grade. Came in with this guy, and he taught me a ton about what it means to be top level athlete. I mean, absolute freaking fireball pitcher. Every time I faced him in the cage, he struck me out. So I got a couple off of him. I might have got one or two off of you, but the vast majority of our battles was you coming out on top.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah. First things first, I just want to say I appreciate you coming on, man. The goal of this is to teach all the younger athletes who are coming up kind of what it takes to make it to that next level. Not only that, but what it takes to succeed at the level that you're currently at. Some lifestyle tips, some daily process stuff, training, all that kind of stuff. So once again, I just want to thank you, for taking the time out to do this, and I really appreciate it. Um, so my first question for you, TJ, is at what age did you know or did you decide that professional sports were a possibility for you?
so it's hard to say kind of what age. I think ever since I was probably about 7 or 8 years old, it's been like a realistic goal of mine. So I remember just being a younger kid, um, going outside playing catch with my dad in the yard after dinner. Him hit me fly balls, ground balls. I was always all about it, just playing baseball, having fun. Um, I think it came realistic to me when my dad was kind of giving me that reassurance. He was like, "You got a $1 million arm." He's like, "Make sure you use it. Make sure you live up to it. Make sure you go out and train hard and like fulfill like your dream." So I think coming from a young age, like having that support system behind me, having that a father figure who was supportive, kind of gave me that extra boost to be like, you know what, like I do have a good arm, I have a good support system. This is something I want to do. I want to pursue. Let's go ahead and do it. So as far as since I was a young age, obviously it was a goal of mine, but when it came realistic to me, I think was probably about my high school year, probably about my junior year. So I was up to about 89 miles an hour prior to going into the season. So I was like, you know what, I'm close to 90. If I get that extra one or two, going into high school might develop, get a little bit stronger. Things might start looking up for me. So um, 89 was my junior year. And then after that, I went down with Tommy John. So I got Tommy John my senior year. I was out for the whole year. So it was definitely hard bouncing back, but took that time off to take care of my body, strengthen my arm, get stronger, get faster, get more powerful, and then end up coming back my freshman year of college. And I actually remember I was supposed to redshirt, and I kept talking to coach. I was like, "Coach, can I throw like one time?" He was like, "No, TJ, like you haven't even thrown a bullpen yet. Like you're not going to throw in a game." I was like, "Coach, just give me one inning." So I think after about a month or two, me just being in his ear, he's like, "You know what? Like if you feel good, I'll give you one inning, go out there, see what you can do." So it was a non-conference game on a Tuesday. Um, Went out there, gave me one inning. And I remember my first or second pitch, I touched 90 miles an hour. And this is right after Tommy John, no bullpen, nothing prior to that. And it was awesome. I hit 90 miles an hour, but as far as you remember, Chris, I think I walked four straight guys. I didn't throw one single strike my freshman year. But um, seeing that big 9-0 on the board coming off Tommy John gave me that reassurance that, you know what, if I continue to work harder, we'll see what happens.
That's awesome, man. That's one thing I always respected about you is that like rain, sleet, snow, sun,
Yeah.
anything, you were freaking ready to go, man. And that's one thing I had a lot of respect for you. I remember we'd be in the gym and you'd go no warm up and freaking put up 315 on the bench or something like
Yeah.
that. Just an
Yeah.
absolute freak of a
Yeah.
human being, man. And
I look back at it, and it's not smart that I did that, but you know, it was fun, and it all worked out in the end. So
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I remember, that all those talks freshman year about like, man, I just need a chance. I just need a chance. And, we didn't really get to see anything from you. So like, how everyone comes into college. They're like, yeah, I threw 89 in high school. I threw 90. You know what I mean? We're all
right.
like, okay, dude. Okay, guy.
So
And
realistically,
then,
you throw 82, 83, and
right. And then freaking that time when you came out on the mound and just threw fucking 12 absolute smoke show fastballs all over the place. We were like, okay, this guy has something for sure.
wow, dang. Yeah.
This guy's a man of his word.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So my second question for you, brother, is
Mhm.
in your opinion, what are the most important steps for younger athletes from youth to high school to take in order to reach the professional level?
So I think the most important thing for younger athletes is to surround yourself with people who have goals that are similar to yours. Someone who wants to get the better out of themselves, wants to push you, because you know what they say: if you surround yourself with good people who have like a good work ethic, and they're willing to help you out, like you're gonna follow in their footsteps, and you two are gonna push each other to become the best versions of yourself you can be. So best thing I could say is surround yourself with good people. Um, Find something that works for you guys, and don't be motivated. I hate when people come in, they're like, oh, you know what? I'm motivated today. I'm going to go on a morning run. I'm going to go to the gym this evening. You know, I always looked at motivation as kind of BS, because to me, motivation comes and goes. You know, I might wake up tomorrow morning, I might want to go to the gym, but guess what? Next week, I might be a little tired. I might not do the same thing over and over. But if you're driven compared to motivated, you're going to succeed, and you're going to do whatever it takes in order to meet your goal. So I think surround yourself with good people, and then having that mindset of be driven, do whatever it takes to succeed, and see what happens from there.
I think you made an excellent point. That's something that we always pride ourselves on down here. Christian is a huge belief. We all are, but Christian really drives that point home of discipline is everything. I mean, you're not gonna be motivated when it's 2 degrees outside and you gotta wake up early and go to school. You're not gonna be motivated, whenever you're a little bit tired and you have training. But discipline and staying driven, like you said, is the most important thing you can be, because the days that people aren't motivated and decide to not go, the person who's also not motivated but is disciplined enough to go is still going to get better, even if they don't have 100% in the tank. I think that's
Right.
an excellent point. And surrounding yourself with driven people like me and you going through college together. I
Mhm.
remember IU Patties, right?
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
a
Good.
huge party time for everyone in college. Well, me and TJ we went to the field and threw, and then we had this little skinny wiffle ball bat or wooden
Yep.
stick bat, and we were throwing tiny little pebbles at each other. If you want to talk about someone who pushes you,
Yeah.
no one in that time of my life pushed me as much as you did, man. Like whenever
Yeah.
everyone else wanted to go out and hang out and party, you were always the one to keep me and say, "Hey, we have a goal in mind. Let's
Yep.
achieve that. Let's not, make the wrong decision here." So that's another thing I really respect you for.
Yeah.
Always pushing me to be my best, even whenever I wasn't feeling motivated as well. So I think
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
my my next question for you, brother: if you could go back in time and tell your younger self one piece of advice for you specifically, what would that be? And also, what held you back and hindered you in that time of your life? And where was a time in your life that you almost stepped off of the path?
So if I could go back and give myself one thing of advice, I think it would be having bigger goals for myself. Um, Obviously, from a young age, you always tell yourself, hey, I want to be this, I want to do that. So for me, it was like, I want to play professional baseball. So like that was always a goal of mine. and I worked as hard as I possibly could to get to that goal. But what I didn't do is plan myself and set the goals for what would happen when I do get to that point, you know? So it was great that I got drafted to professional baseball because I mean, it was always a dream of mine, but it's nice for a day or two, but then you come back to reality and you're like, okay, now it's not college baseball anymore. Now it's professional baseball. Now you're going up against the best of the best. And it's not about just playing in the minors. Like everybody who gets drafted is trying to make it to the majors. So I think for me, going back in time, setting my goals higher and seeing what happens, because you know what? I mean, you can always take a step back or you can take little steps, progress to get to that goal. It's not going to happen overnight. It might not happen in a year, it might not happen in a few years, but if you take little steps to get there, you'll be able to achieve it a little bit at a time. And then obviously, um, reach your ultimate goal, which for me was just to get drafted. And I wish I could have went back and would have been making it to the majors.
Yeah, dude. I think that's a great point. Because I think that was my goal too,
Yeah.
was to get drafted. And I think if I felt like I got drafted, then I was okay. You know, like
Right.
that was my whole goal. I knew what the odds were to actually make it to the majors.
Right.
Um, but my goal was really to get drafted. And I think there was times in my life as well, it's like high school especially, where if I could go back, I would tell myself, don't listen to what the statistics are. Don't listen to the fact that, you're 5'7" or 5'8".
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Don't listen to that stuff. Like, there's people in the majors, all shapes and sizes. And I think there was times where I kind of almost stepped off the path because I was like, my goal was always to get drafted, but part of me maybe didn't fully 100% believe I was going to. And
Right.
I think around that high school time, I kind of was like, maybe I should just like, maybe what am I going training for today?
Yeah.
Maybe I just won't hit today because I feel like maybe I'm just good. I'm good enough to get drafted, or, maybe it won't happen. So,
Yeah. And
I'll go
like I
do
said,
this instead.
and as
Go
far as
ahead.
like, as far as falling off the path, I don't think I touched on that, but um, I think what like my lowest point was is obviously my junior year when I was getting a lot of looks at from pro scouts, early season, off season, leading into it. Obviously, coach had me as a starting pitcher. Um, so realistically, I kind of knew if I had a chance at the professional level, I wasn't going to be a starter. I'd probably be reliever, 1-2 inning guy, come in and seventh, eighth inning, see what happens. So I think as far as falling off the edge for me is I remember it was an away game at Slippery Rock. I was a starter for about a month. I think 4 or 5 weeks I was a starter and I wasn't performing. And that's the one thing I did respect about coach at IUP Rubinski is um, he didn't care that I was getting looks at from pro scouts. Like he was doing it from his standpoint, like how can we get this team to get better? And I'm not going to lie, at that time I wasn't performing. I didn't deserve a starting position at all. So towards the middle of the season when we were playing Slippery Rock, I didn't get that start. Um, I remember I was a Sunday guy. He was like, "You're not going to start this week." He's like, "You just haven't been putting the numbers up." So I kind of had to take a step back, take a look in the mirror, and be like, you know what, like he's right where he comes from. Like I don't deserve the starting position because I haven't proven. It doesn't matter if you go out, you throw 95 miles an hour. If you can't throw strikes, you're not gonna play in the game. So I think by him taking me out of that starting role, me realizing like, okay, like this is actually getting real. Like if I want to do something about it, like I need to show up right now. So I remember it was that day at Slippery Rock. Ben Hudock got the start over me, and I was very upset, but I was still being a good teammate because you and I were team captains. I was still trying to support him being there. And so happens he goes out and he had a bad start too. I mean, he got pulled in the first inning. So coach came up to me. He's like, "All right, TJ, you're in." So for me, nothing changed. To me, it was still a start. It was still the first inning. It was my game. And I went in and I finished the rest of the game through gem. I think I might have give up one hit. And I remember there was no scouts there because leading up to that, I wasn't throwing very well. But after that game, The Phillies actually reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, like we watched your game online, saw you really threw well. Like you're able to fight that adversity. Like we want you to come down and do a pro day with us here in a month or so." So I think by me getting that setback from starter position and me realizing like if I don't actually start showing up and performing and doing what I have to do, like there's going to be no shot. So yeah,
And I think you bring up a really good point with that, and this is what, in my opinion, really separates you. And I can't even say if something like that happened to me that I would do my best to
hmm
act the same way that you did. But sometimes early in my life, their emotions were tough for me. And I think that's what really separates you is that even though you were upset, even though internally you might have been feeling like despair,
yeah,
you were able to still put the team first.
right,
I know so many guys who had the same skill set as you, but if something like that happened to them, you know that where they're at, they're
yeah,
sitting on the other end of the bench. They're
right,
not getting up and they're not picking up their guy. They're not reflecting and looking at themselves in the mirror and saying, you know what, this guy isn't doing it because he hates me or he wants me to fail. This guy's doing it because at the end of the day, I'm the one who's not performing.
right,
And for you to be able to put that aside and put your pride aside and show up whenever your name was called after that,
yep,
I think if you don't take that mindset and you don't take that approach, maybe you don't go out and have the day that you did that day. You know what I
right,
mean? Maybe you don't overcome that adversity because your mindset didn't allow you to. But on the contrary, your mindset is what allowed you to not only obtain that role because you acted like such a professional, but to then succeed whenever that adversity and that moment showed up, and you didn't you didn't crumble under the moment. That You shined.
yeah.
So that's something I really really respect about you, man.
Yeah,
It
and, like,
was your mind.
it's hard when things aren't going your way, it's very easy to put your head down and tuck your tail, but for me, it wasn't about me in that moment. I knew what I had to work on, but ultimately, like, I knew being a team captain, I had to be there for my team, be there for my family, and obviously, me getting the start wasn't the most important thing that day, it was obviously winning the ball game, so luckily, we went on and won that game, and things worked out.
That's awesome, man. That's a really really great answer. So my next question for you is, what is the part of professional sports that people don't see, right? Like this is something I talked with Ole about. Everybody sees the glory. Everyone
Mhm.
sees the he got drafted. Everyone sees the really cool side of it. What's some of the like hardships and tough times that professional athletes go through that people don't see?
Yeah, so I think the biggest adjustment for me was obviously just the games being played. You come from high school, you play 10, 15 games. You go to college, you might play 30, 40 games. You get to the professional level, guess what? You have a 120 game schedule, plus you have another 15, 20 games um, in spring training. So the thing that was hard for me was obviously the adjustment to more games, longer season, keeping your body healthy. But you don't realize what goes into those days. It's not that you have a 12 o'clock game and you roll up to the field at 10 o'clock. That's not how it works. It's if I remember in rookie ball, for instance, we would always play our games at 12 o'clock. Clearwater, Florida, middle of the day, 95 degrees. Um, so in rookie ball, we would get up at 6:30 in the morning. We would report to the field. Prior to the game, you would have to do your weight training, you would do your conditioning, you would eat, you would do your arm care, you would do everything you had to do before you had to play a baseball game. And then you would play a baseball game and then you'd sit there for a few hours and that was your day. And then when you move up the levels, like single way for me, now our games aren't at noon, they're at 7 o'clock at night. So for us, report time was at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning for a 7 o'clock game. So we're doing the same thing. We're there at 9 o'clock in the morning. Guess what? We got to get in there. We got to do our tissue prep. We got to warm up. We got to do our conditioning. We got to do our throwing program. We got to eat. We got to go see, uh, doctors, go see whoever's there for the day. Like if you have little bumps and bruises, you got to take care of. just to self-care, get yourself ready for that game. So it's not that you're just playing a baseball game at 7 o'clock. You're there for, 8, 10 hours prior to a baseball game. Then you're playing a baseball game in front of fans, and then you're there till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's repeat over repeat over repeat throughout the whole season. So a lot of people don't see that. They just maybe turn on the TV or tune in, see the stats, but you don't realize how much work actually goes in prior to a game, especially in professional baseball. You're not there for a few hours a day. You're there 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days, 7 days a week.
And that's one thing that all of us players always hated whenever Coach Urbanski would say, but it is a grind. Like it's a literal grind.
Yep.
Like if you don't have passion for it, you don't love what you're doing, you're working a day job like everyone else. You know what I
Yep.
mean? 10 times more physically demanding in some respect.
Right.
Um, so yeah, like I would agree. You know, there's a lot of things that people don't see. Like even whenever I was doing collegiate summer ball, like we're playing 6 games a week, you get
Mhm.
off one day and you feel like a train wreck for that one day off, and then boom, we got to go again. We got a
Yep.
9 hour bus drive and we got to play a game, and then we got a 4 hour bus drive. You got to play another game, like and pro ball, like unless you're maybe AAA or double A or majors, like you're not
Yeah, you're,
flying. You're
you're
riding on the
busting.
bus.
Yeah,
Yep,
you're
you're
busting
riding on
across
the
the
bus.
state, and you best believe you're staying there for the game, and you're probably driving back that night and driving back the next morning. So, um, yeah, it was definitely an eye opener because, like you said, coach said it was a grind, and he hated using that word, and I never understood it. But once I got to the professional level, I was able to relate back to that. Be like, you know what? Like it's more than just playing games and performing. Now you're here the whole day. You're training. You're busting your rear end prior to a game, while you still have to worry about going out and performing. And even though you're playing with your teammates, like the guys beside you are trying to take your job. So it was never a comfort zone for me. It was like, you know what, like I gotta do what I have to do to still stay here and compete and keep my job because this guy behind me is trying to take it, you know, while still trying to maintain a good like team player friendship with them because ultimately, like at the end of the day, like you're on the same team, but there's just a lot that goes into it that a lot of people don't see.
Awesome, man. I think that's a great answer. A lot of people don't get to see that side of it, you know. So my next question for you, brother, is what was your training like as a younger athlete versus what it is now or when you became a professional athlete? You know, for instance, when we were in college, a lot of times we just go to the gym and get after it, right? You just go
Mhm.
lift heavy weights, you go, you feel good. But what was the difference between, the training whenever you were, before you kind of understood what it took? What was the difference in emphasis? What was kind of the things that you learned on how to train like an athlete? What were some of the most like things that you took away from that?
Yeah. So prior to professional baseball, as well as I do, is we probably weren't training like baseball players should. We were in there because we came from a background where we played multiple sports in high school. So our mindset was we're going to go in, we're going to barbell bench, we're going to back squat, we're going to deadlift, we're going to lift heavy weight, we're going to get bigger, stronger, and we're not going to really take care of our body. So that's the training that I was doing when I was younger, coming up through the system. And ultimately, like my body kind of adjusted to it. So for me to feel good, sometimes be going in and lifting heavy weights before a game or right after a game. And it made me feel good. But once I got to the professional level, they threw up the red flag right away, first day. And they're like, no, no, no. Like, this is what we're going to do. Like, because there's so much on mobility in baseball and keeping yourself healthy that obviously from my background with like the benching and squat, I was always super, super tight. I could barely touch my toes right now if I had to, but I was able to know how my body worked to still be able to go out and perform to the best of my ability. But when I got to the professional aspect of it, it was, we're going to work on mobility, we're going to work on flexibility, we're going to work on keeping you healthy. So there wasn't much benching at all. I don't think I benched one time when I was a professional. Squatting was very limited. The training was, for me, it was more how am I going to be able to open my body up, be more mobile to ultimately keep myself more healthy? Because obviously, when you're tight and you're sore, you're more prone to get injured. Um, so I think just transitioning to a new workout plan, a new schedule, just come to terms with like, you know what, like I can't really go back to like how I used to train because like they do have a point and they're much more knowledgeable than I am. But just kind of had to put my trust into them. They knew what they were talking about. They're professionals. They studied it, and realizing ultimately at the end of the day, like I'm gonna do whatever it takes in order to feel as good as I can to survive the whole season without getting hurt.
Yeah, I think that's a great I think that's a great point. And I think there is a not a stigma, but there's sort of like a misunderstanding of like what you should do at certain levels. So like, when you're talking professional level, you're talking about guys who are already incredibly strong,
Mhm.
already incredibly powerful. And you're going to maintain that. You're not going to lose so much strength that you can't play baseball anymore. But when you're coming up, like when you're developing, that is where I feel like that emphasis should be on, so that you can build that base. You can build that, like, I'm a brutally strong, explosive, fast individual. And then once we kind of start reaching that peak, whenever you get to a certain level, it gets so much harder to get that much stronger and that much
Right.
better, that, okay, now that we've built all this up over these years, now let's start maintaining that. Because,
Right.
when you're 22 years old and at one point, you squatted whatever, you're not going to just lose all your strength,
Right.
but you can continue to kind of put your body in bad positions if that's all you focus on for forever. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think that's a great point, and that's something that I didn't really learn until after college. Whenever I started like getting all doing all my education on this, and even that like last year of college, I really started understanding what it took to be an athlete. And I think someone who really helped me with that, and I'm sure helped with you with that, is Franco Alexander.
Yeah.
He was the guy that, like, he was the one who like sparked this in me and started making me think like, oh, there's a different way to train,
Big time.
to be an athlete. Going to his place, like me and you going there at 7 in the morning and training like an athlete, instead of just, going to the hub gym and
Doing
and
arm curls.
and doing curls and cable triceps, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
just
And
benching
like I
and
said,
stuff.
there is a huge difference in training, you know. I mean, nothing wrong with going to the gym and doing arms and triceps kind of on the side whenever you feel like it. But as far as being explosive and like creating that quick twitch movement, because ultimately, like not just baseball but other sports, like if you have that quick twitch movement, like everything else is going to flow and be able to kind of branch off of that.
100%. And that's something that we're really trying to develop with these kids down here, while also introducing them to the importance of the mobility, the
Yep.
importance of taking care of your body. Don't go here, don't train for an hour and then go home and, like, just sit all day.
Right.
Like, go home, do your stretches, do your mobility, do your foam rolling. Like, all stuff that we hammer down here. And I think it's just really helpful hearing it from guys who made it to the top level. Emphasize that, because we can say it till we're blue in the face, but they hear professionals who we're talking to personally say it. Maybe it hammers home a little bit more important.
Right.
And it gets in their mind a little bit more.
Yep.
So my next question for you, man, is in your opinion, we got about three more of these, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what sets professional athletes apart from amateur, semi-professional, collegiate, high school athletes? I think we kind of already touched on it, but
Yeah.
what's something that you can look at a guy early on and be like, okay, that guy has something.
Yeah.
he can build off that if he does the right things. What's something in your mind that sets him apart?
So obviously the biggest thing for me was obviously just having that mindset to begin with. Um, Having that not expectation, but like having that mindset that, you know what, like you're going to do whatever it takes to get better this day. Um, I think as far as like athletes that like I've seen, like the big difference is just they're more in tune with their body, their mechanics. They're more fluid. Whereas if you go to maybe a high school or like a college game, you might see more errors on simple plays that are going to be made at higher levels. So I think just being more in tune with your body, more mentally and physically like capable of making the plays that you should be and not making errors.
Yeah, and I think that comes with like the discipline of repetition. Like
Hmm.
you might be outstanding at taking ground balls, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it every single day. That doesn't
Right.
mean you shouldn't do. We have something down here we call our everydays with our baseball guys. Like we're doing picks, right? We're
Yep.
doing picks in the kneeling position, right at you, glove side, backhand, and then we're doing in a standing position, glove side,
Yep.
backhand, right at you, and then then we get into our ground balls, and it's just like that constant repetition. You can never get enough of because, like you said, the professional players they're going to make the hard plays look easy, but they're also going to make the easy plays like every time.
Yeah.
Every time they're going to be getting those plays, like the routine plays they're going to be getting that every time. You might see a guy make 10 errors in 162 games. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, and that's incredible. Think about how many ground balls someone's getting in 162 games, and
Right.
they're going to have 10 errors on the year. Like, that's some dedication, and that's repetition, repetition, repetition.
And
Um,
the thing with the repetition too is, yes, they might get more repetitions because they play more games, but from what I see is you can go out and practice as much as you want. Like you're going to get better over time, but practice doesn't make perfect. You know that, I know that. But one thing that does separate that is perfect practice. If you have a perfect practice, you're very detail oriented, you have a plan going into practice, what you want to achieve, that's what's going to separate you from everybody else. Because you know what? You might be like, you know what? I want to work on that backhand today, that two hopper, get that early bounce, work through it. If you have that plan going in, you want to work on that instead of just kind of going through the motions, which I feel like a lot of athletes kind of do because they're told from their coach, like, all right, we're going to take pop up and grounders today. Like, and then the athlete might just be like, all right, here we go again. Like, this is our fifth straight day of taking pop ups. But like, you know what? Like, even though you're taking those pop ups and that repetition, 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 if you make it a point to better yourself and have a plan on what you want to do, that's when you're going to be able to create that distance from everybody else and prove yourself that you deserve to be above and beyond.
That's an excellent answer, man. That's a great point. Um, so, like, kind of going on that, like, process and plan, when you were a professional, even whenever you were chasing it, like, your junior year and, throughout college, but really whenever you started making a lot of noise, you were super focused and super motivated on what you wanted to do. What was your daily process like then? What was it like? I'm doing this every day, and then this day I'm going to do this. What was kind of that daily process like for you?
So for me, it was kind of unorthodox because everybody's like, oh, you kind of have to have like a plan. I mean, like you said, like going into practice, I would have a plan of what I want to do. But throughout the whole day, I never really set those goals for myself because mentally I kind of told myself, you know what, like if I just do what I might write down or I might think about, like I'm not gonna be able to go above and beyond and achieve to be as good as possible. So I think for me was just making myself uncomfortable in times that like I wasn't comfortable, if that makes sense. So like just being uncomfortable, like put yourself in situations that you have to make an adjustment around. So like I might go and train at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Might go to class the rest of the day. Might be really tired at the end of the day. Might try to get to bed instead of going to bed at 9 o'clock. I'm be like, you know what? Like maybe I'll go for a run here at 9:30. Like just get like a nice little mile and a half, 2 mile jog and get like an extra little workout and like going above and beyond. So like it's good to have a plan written down, But for me, like I never wanted to be satisfied. Like I didn't want to just be set in stone with just one plan. Like I wanted to do the extra, which it does take in order to play at the next level.
That's cool, man. And I think I think, just having that mindset of like, I'm not just going to check this box off. I'm going to create a new box and do that for myself as well, and just kind of just pushing yourself mentally, to get to the point of like nothing can break you,
Right.
nothing can stop you from your goal and your dream, and if you take that mindset, I think, it's not only going to better you in terms of reaching your goals, but it's going to better you in terms of you as a person as well. It's going to make you
Right.
mentally strong that you can handle any adversity.
Exactly.
When those bright lights come on, it's like nothing. You've been uncomfortable before, you can
Hmm.
handle it.
And
Um,
that's what it is, putting yourself in that uncomfortable position. So when you do face those bigger challenges, it's you've been there before. You've done stuff that's worse than this. Like find ways to get comfortable in uncomfortable positions.
that's awesome. That's awesome. We always want to be, warm and toasty and comfort. But
Yeah.
growth doesn't happen taking the easy route. Growth happens taking the
Yep.
hard route. Um,
Yep. Let's
so my
get outside and run your hills here in the winter.
that's right. That's right. Get cold. Um, so my last question for you, and then I didn't ask you this. I also didn't ask all this early on. I'm going to start fixing this, but I want you to tell your story, like, as far back and and the whole thing after this next question. Um, but what's something that helps you in your mind? How do you overcome mindset setbacks such as the yips, negative thoughts, and performing under pressure? What are things that helped you with all those areas?
So as far as like performing under pressure, I think just from a young age, just putting myself in those situations. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I might be taking that bat in the cage, and I might just be like, you know what, it's full count, ball in the ninth inning. Like, got to get a hit here, got to drive that guy in. So I was almost creating like the game from like a young age growing up, like during my practices, during my training to prepare myself for when those big events would come up. But obviously, I mean, throughout playing sports, especially baseball, you're going to have setbacks. You might go 0 for 4 with 4 Ks one day. You might come out the next day and you might go 4 for 4. Same thing as a pitcher. You might come out and you might be lights out one evening, but you come back out and then you only have maybe one pitch and you can't find your other 2 or 3 pitches to control for that day. So I think it's knowing what you have for the day, being able to ride with it and get comfortable with like, you know what, like if I don't have my slider, my curveball that day, like trust your fastball. Like if you throw it where you got to throw it, like hitting's hard, like let them put a barrel on the ball and hope good things happen, but just staying positive. And as far as like negative thoughts, that's something I definitely faced throughout like my whole career because I knew I had a good arm. I knew I had good stuff when I was in the strike zone, but my problem was with staying in the strike zones and competing. You could throw 95, 96 miles an hour, which I got up to, but it doesn't matter if you can't stay in the strike zone. So um, I remember when I'd pitch, I would always be so negative to myself because I held myself to such a high expectation. But as I kind of grew as an athlete, realizing like don't have expectations for yourself because you're going to hold yourself accountable and you're going to show it on the mound and you're going to just kind of fall off the edge, and not be able to stand up for what you got to do that day. Something that helped me is like when I would go 2-0, 3-0 on a batter, instead of sitting there and just kind of hanging my head and being upset, I would almost view it as like, you know what, like it doesn't matter what the count is. Like it's an 0-0 count every single pitch. Like how am I going to get ahead? How am I going to compete? When I kind of feel like my head, my body start rushing, kind of fans get into it a little bit. Biggest thing is just take a deep breath, step off, like realize that like you're in control of the game. Like they cannot swing the bat until you pitch the baseball. So I think just creating um, my subconscious mind to like know what I have to do, know what pitch I got to throw, go out and execute instead of just overthinking it on the mound. You know what? Like if the catcher throws me a slider, guess what? I'm going to throw a slider. I'm going to throw the crap out of it. If I throw it for a ball, Guess what? Next pitch, it's oh well, who cares? You know it. So being able to advance, move on, pitch to pitch, bat after bat, like it doesn't matter. It's just like baseball's such a great sport because there are so many games throughout a year. You know what? There's going to be that tomorrow practice. There's going to be that tomorrow game where you're going to be able to prepare to better yourself for that next performance. But it's a game of failures. So you got to be able to take the L's when they come, but learn from the losses to better yourself so you can better your chances to getting that win.
Hell yeah, man. I think you've dropped some absolute gems of knowledge for these guys. And my first interview with Ole, I wasn't able to. I'm still working on it. There's some like hiccups with the recording. I think I got it figured out for this one, and I'm really excited to post this whole one because
Yeah,
I think coming from someone who made it out of the D2 level,
yeah,
like for one, anything is possible,
um,
and two, for your story and all the hardships that you've been through. I freaking commend you to the highest degree for everything that you've accomplished. I've always like incredibly looked up to you. Throughout my entire time of knowing you, and then having the privilege of calling you one of my closest friends. So that's going to wrap up our interview. The last thing I want you to do is just tell everyone your story, your background, where you're from, kind of your journey throughout sports, and your professional career as well.
yeah,
And then we'll wrap it up, and then I'll stop the recording, and then me and you can chit chat for another minute, and then we'll get you on. So.
yeah,
Uh, Yep. Whenever you're ready, just tell everyone your story, and then we're good to go.
yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. So Um, grew up in the Evansburg, Ventco area. I know Chris always makes fun of me because we say Ventco and he calls it Ventco. If you blink, you kind of go through the little village. But you know what? I mean, I grew up loving baseball, loving the outdoors. Any sport I was always involved in. So from young age, got myself involved with as many sports as I possibly could because once I got up to that high school level, um, not only did baseball, football, track, and eventually played tennis and basketball a little bit, all those sports helped develop me into being a better athlete in one way or another. So for me is just getting out, playing as many sports as you can. I mean, obviously there's always chance for injury, but you can't be thinking negative. I mean, if God has a plan, he has a plan for you. So if you can go out, do what you got to do, be as athletic, as mobile as you possibly can, it's going to help benefit you in the end. Um, so after my senior year, Central Cambria High School, I graduated in 2016. Um, Obviously wanted to pursue baseball. So coming out my junior year, I was talking to a lot of Division I schools. Some of my schools were Pitt, Penn State, VCU. Um, Geez, I can't remember, but there's probably another 8, 10, 12 another D1 schools that I talked to. And obviously when I was younger, I always wanted to go play Division I. I think that's kind of everyone's dream, but um, things with Tommy John surgery that I had my senior year, and then also with schooling, I wasn't able to do very well in my ACT, my SAT school scores. So a lot of the colleges that were interested in recruiting me weren't able to take me on board because I didn't have good SAT, ACT scores. So at the end of the day, you could be the best athlete possible, but if you can't take care of your education and be that college athlete that you got to be in school, like it's never going to work out for you because you got to take care of your education first and then be an athlete. So um, luckily I was able to get picked up by IUP. I know Jeff Ditch recruited both of us, Chris and I. Unfortunately, he passed away about a few years ago, but we kind of went on board underneath Coach Rabinski, and he took us under his wing. And I mean, even from that day, I mean, I think Chris and I both had that same mindset, the same goal, the same drive that we wanted to push each other to be the best we could be, to see where we can go in life. And it was the late night talks that we had. It was the early morning workouts. It was, you know, everything that you kind of reflect back on those days and you're like, damn, like if I could just go back for another day or two, like just to enjoy those moments, because they go by quick and then they're gone. But I was definitely privileged to be able to spend a lot of my time with you, Chris, and a lot of the guys at IUP. We had a good career, a good run at it. Fortunate enough for me, I was able to get picked up in the 27th round of June of 2019. Went and played professional baseball with the Phillies for 3 years, and then I was released last March. So it was a good run. Uh, Nothing to hang my head about, but I definitely look forward to continuing my baseball knowledge and spreading it to the youth, and um, kind of seeing what you guys can do now. Because if you guys set those goals high, I mean, there's nothing stopping you. So don't be afraid to set little goals time after time again, but ultimately have that ultimate goal that you want to achieve in the end, because nothing's stopping you. And like I said, there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be people that are negative and don't believe in you. But if you believe in yourself, anything's possible.
My man, I appreciate you sharing that, and I 100% agree, man. I look back on our time at IUP and a lot of fondness. And I'm really lucky to be surrounded by people who actually cared.
Mhm.
I think going into school, I was a little bit nervous because I didn't know if people were going to have the same drive as me. Little did I know that there was people who had more drive than me, and that was you. So I appreciate you always pushing
For
me,
sure.
and the friendship that we've created over that. And hey, man, I'm still coaching baseball, so
Yeah.
if you ever come out this way in Pittsburgh, man, I need a pitching coach because I don't have
Yeah,
one right now.
I hear you.
And
I hear you, man. I still try to stick around the game and coach the youth and do lessons here and there. But it's exciting sharing my knowledge from what I know and try to help the youth, because like you and I both know, if we would have had some of the knowledge that we know now, maybe a few years back, things would be so much different. So I think just finding that athlete who is too willing to go above and beyond, um, kind of take in all that knowledge and be able to go out and express it all, like that's what's going to make you take that step to get up to where you need to be. It doesn't matter what college you go to. You can go to a JUCO, a D3, D2, D1, doesn't matter. I mean, if you go out and perform, put up numbers, and you show that you belong, like someone's going to find you. So don't think just going to D2 isn't good enough. I mean, because it shows there's a lot of guys that get drafted from the PSAC. There's a lot of guys who still get drafted from the Division 3 level. As long as you can go out and play and show that you deserve to be there, someone's going to pick you up.
another gem of knowledge that you just dropping on everyone. Hey, man, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, and I know that you're passionate about this, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much, man.
You got it, man. Take it easy.
Yes, sir.